investigated so that we can understand the dynamics involved in this issue. I take up the issue of what is my perception of corruption. Corruption is a generic term, very, very wide, and seems to have defied all generally acceptable definition. What I can, in my opinion, think is corrupt might not be the same perception with another person. But I think the guiding principles will have to be the legal order now that define acts that are corrupt. And for us to find a definition of corruption, we must look at the existing legal order. What does the laws refer to as corruption? What are those acts that are referred to as corruption? Otherwise, we will smuggle morality into law. And if morality is smuggled into law, then it is a very dangerous trend. We will have people bringing their own personal opinions into it, and the war against corruption will end up in a wild goose chase that we might not get the desirable results. So I reduce my perception of corruption to what our laws define them to be. My passion for national unity, and then the relationship between the National Assembly, and if I find myself in the Ministry of Justice, how do I handle resolution? I think my passion for national unity integration is born out of the conviction of the experiences this country has gone through. As a young person, I was made to go into the trenches in the 60s. And when I grew up, I had to ask my parents, why was I forced as a young man to run into trenches? And they said, we were fighting civil war. And I now developed the interest of what was the cause? Why should we fight ourselves? And why should we undergo what we went through? And I read so much about the experiences of this country, and I've developed interest in that. And my conclusion is that we are yet to build a nation. We are yet to build a nation where we have common interests and we may have our differences. We are not the only diverse nation in the world. Greater countries of the world are made up of diversity. Differences in religion, differences in tribe, but there must be common national interests. So my interest as a person is to try to reduce the gap, to encourage, to promote, so that all these differences are narrowed down. I find difficulty in understanding why there should be differences between Christianity and Islam. I can't reconcile why there should be a disagreement to the point of killing each other between the people in the north and in the south, and so forth, and so on and so forth. So I think for the religious differences, let's go back and look at our books. What do the revealed books provide? For Christianity, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And your neighbor cannot be a Christian. Your neighbor must be somebody who is not a Christian. That's why he's a neighbor. You must love him. For Islam, Islam is a religion of peace. And of course, it has a very good foundation of support of Christianity at the initial stage. What basis have Muslims to hate Christians? So I think if we begin to think like this, we'll be able to narrow the gap. If we begin to see ourselves as Nigerians, we'll begin to narrow the gap of differences in tribes. And once we do this, we'll be able to build a nation where our children can be proud. Then coming to cutting of costs and merger of the anti-graft agencies. The proliferation of the anti-graft agencies, to my mind, made the situation a duplication of effort. Somebody is invited today to go to EFCC on the same charges. Tomorrow he is invited to go to ICPC on the same. And then the next day he goes to another agency. I think a code of conduct and all. So I think the distinguished Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has to look back. I mean, all these legislations have to be reviewed and brought into conformity with what we intend to achieve. But the proliferation of these agencies doing the same thing, I think, is responsible for the crisis that has infected even our definition of what is corruption. So my opinion is I stand boldly to support the merger of these agencies so that we can have a solid anti-graft agencies that will discharge the obligation imposed upon it by law.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity to ask my brother, Mr. Dalong. I congratulate you for being a nominee and before this Senate. I have just short 2 questions for you. Number 1 is, will you subscribe to, based on your experience in the prison service, what would you say that is Nigerian prisons a correctional prisons or a prison just to shut up or lock up the criminals? And would you subscribe to correctional prisons in Nigeria? Number 2, you have a publication called Celebration of Banana Republic. Can you expatiate what you mean by Banana Republic? Thank you.
Senator Gilbert Energy.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Gilbert Energy, representing Enugu East. My distinguished colleagues, Mr. Nominee, it has been said repeatedly that there is need to diversify the economy of this nation by focusing on the alternative source of growth and job creation, like adding values to agriculture and developing manufacturing sector. My question is this: as a minister nominee, what new ideas would you bring on board for fast-tracking this diversification of economy? Thank you.
Senator Sonny Uguch.
Mr. Nominee, as I look at what you presented to us on your CV, I see here human rights advocate, international political analyst, anti-corruption crusader, and corrections officer. That means you are really looking at the society with the intention that there should be a new order. And you are coming from the party that says that they want to create change. And the party that said that they want to bring change. I want to ask you this question. Is it possible for change, especially the battle on corruption, to take place just by one man's disposition or by institutions that exist in the polity?
Barrister Dalong can take those questions.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Senate President. Well, diversification of the economy, the question from the single senator from Enugu North, what new ideas? Enugu East, sorry. Well, I think the over-dependency on oil had indeed made Nigerians lazy people. It has produced people thinking that since we have an established source with which we can get anything we want, and so there is no need for new ideas. This is reflected in the way our local government system and state government handle the issue of IGR. Going by the IGR of most